Many keen gardeners struggle more to grow plants indoors. More plants die from being overwatered than any other cause, and it's easy to understand how this happens when the top of the soil looks dry and the plant leaves are turning brown. Giving it more water can seem like the logical approach. Others like to have a plant that they can leave alone and water it occasionally when they remember or have time. A plant that won't die when they're away on holiday perhaps. In this video I will show you 20 houseplants which can take at least some level of neglect. These plants are more likely to be killed by kindness, so less is more. Although the timescales given for how long each plant can survive with neglect are a rough guide and can vary depending on how established the plant is, the pot size, and the temperature of the room, to name just a few variables. So if you are looking for an easy to care for houseplant, here are 20 you can try. Some Schefflera or Heptaplurum can be grown outdoors in the UK. However, less hardy species make good houseplants. Also known as the umbrella tree, they grow in Australian forests and can survive for a few weeks without water. They should be watered when the soil dries out and do not need any fertiliser, although they do benefit from fortnightly feeds in spring and summer. Chlorophytum are better known as spider plants and normally grow in the undergrowth in mountainous regions of Africa. They should therefore avoid direct sunlight and can be watered when the soil is completely dry. They'll survive for a few weeks with no water. Fertiliser is an optional extra and they will put up with lower light conditions. Ideally, however, they prefer damp soil and medium humidity. Philodendron are native to the tropical rainforests of Central and South America. They can go at least 2 weeks without water, but it's best to water it when the top inch of soil is dry. They need fertiliser every 2 weeks during the warmer months, or the plant will have slower growth and paler small leaves. They prefer bright indirect light, but those with solid green leaves can tolerate lower light levels. Many species of yucca are better grown outdoors in the UK. However, elephantiepes, which is native to the deserts of Mexico, is not fully hardy and grows better as a houseplant. They can tolerate low light conditions and low humidity and can go several weeks without water. They should only be watered when dry, as they are prone to rotting if kept too moist, and they do prefer fertiliser once a month. Caryota are palm trees known as fishtail palms and grow in the tropical rainforests of Asia. They make excellent houseplants and will tolerate dry soil, but it does cause them to go dormant and stop growing, and eventually leaves will start to turn brown. Although they will cope with no fertiliser for a year or two, it's best to feed them with every 4 waters. They will tolerate low light, but will grow better with bright indirect light. Strelitzia are commonly known as the bird of paradise and grow on riverbanks and forests in South Africa. They like bright light, high humidity and misting, although this is not essential, and prefer to be pot-bound in order to produce flowers. Their soil can dry out for a few weeks, and the plant will let you know by their leaves curling and splitting, then turning brown. They do need fertiliser in the growing season. Dieffenbachia, known as the dumb cane, grows in the rainforests of Central and South America. They can tolerate low light but may grow more slowly or become leggy. They can also tolerate no fertiliser if repotted annually with some fresh soil. They should be watered when the top 2 inches of soil is dry, but can go weeks with no water, and will show signs if it receives too little water, including drooping leaves and leaves turning brown and crinkled. Orchids are commonly grown as houseplants in the UK, and although some species can be more challenging to grow, most orchids you can find in supermarkets can be left for up to a couple of months without water and survive a year or 2 with no fertiliser. They do prefer more regular watering, however, as well as occasional misting, bright indirect light, and grow best in bark-based orchid compost. Bocania are known as ponytail palms and are native to the semi-deserts of Mexico. They store water in their trunks, so the soil should dry out completely between watering, and they can go many weeks without water. They also don't require any fertiliser, but can be given some once or twice during the growing season to promote growth. They prefer bright light, but can tolerate low light. Freesia splendens is a bromeliad known as flaming sword and grows in South American tropical and subtropical rainforests. They prefer bright, indirect light, and although preferring high humidity, they can tolerate low humidity. Their soil should be barely moist, and mixing in some orchid compost is beneficial, but the cup in the middle of the plant should stay filled with water. They do not need to be fertilised, but can be given some in the growing season. Epipremnum are commonly known as pothos and is a fast-growing plant native to Asian tropical and subtropical forests. They prefer low to medium light levels and should only be watered when the soil begins to dry. They can survive several weeks with no water and several months or a year or two with no fertiliser, although it will need some nutrients to promote healthy growth. Crassula ovata is a succulent, also known as the jade plant or money plant. They grow naturally on rocky hillsides and sandy slopes in South Africa, so are drought tolerant and can survive several weeks without water. However, this may lead to stunted growth and leaf problems, so they are best watered when the top layer of soil is dry. They can go several months without fertiliser, but prefer to be fed once a month in the growing season. Spathiphyllum are commonly known as peace lilies and grow in the tropical forests of Central and South America. Amazingly, these plants can survive on artificial light alone, but they will only flower with some natural light. They can survive without water for a short time and will start to droop to remind you that they need watering. They can also survive without fertiliser, but do need some for regular flowering. Howea forsteriana is commonly called the Kentia palm, and they are surprisingly robust palm trees which can survive low light, infrequent watering, and low humidity. They can survive with no fertiliser and can tolerate several weeks with no water. Ideally, though, for optimal growth, they prefer bright, indirect light, water when the top 2 inches of soil is dry, and liquid feed once a month, and misting a few times a week. Howarthia are commonly known as zebra plants. They grow on rocky outcrops and mountain slopes in South Africa and can go many months without water, but can be killed in a day from overwatering. They will benefit from fertiliser every 3 months, but this is not needed. They should avoid being placed in direct sunlight, but can tolerate lower light conditions. Aloe vera is a succulent native to the African deserts. They prefer bright light, but can tolerate some low light, although this may cause them to stretch. They should be watered when the soil has completely dried out, and can survive several months without water. They can also survive with no fertiliser, although they may benefit from some occasionally. Zamioculcas zamiifolia is commonly known as the ZZ plant and grows in the dry forests and grasslands of Africa. They should be kept out of direct sunlight but can tolerate low light levels. They can go several months without water as they store it in their rhizomes, so should be only watered when completely dry. They don't need any fertiliser, but they can be given some once or twice in the growing season. Dracaena are often known as dragon trees and are slow-growing houseplants native to several dry tropical regions around the world, and so they prefer their soil to be completely dry before watering. They can go a couple of months without water, and no fertiliser is needed, although they do benefit from a fortnightly feed during growing season. They prefer bright, indirect light, but will tolerate low light. Echeveria are rosette-forming succulents native to the semi-desert areas of Mexico. They do not need any fertiliser, and although they can benefit from some occasionally, they are more at risk of over-fertilising. They should be watered only when the soil is dry, and can go 1 or 2 months without water. They prefer bright, indirect light, but will cope with lower light conditions. Sansevieria are commonly known as the snake plant or mother-in-law's tongue. They are from Africa, where they grow naturally in very dry conditions and can go several months without water. They should be watered only when the soil is dry, and they're more likely to be harmed by overwatering. They grow best in bright, indirect light, but will grow in low light. They don't need any fertiliser, but can be given some once a month. If you've enjoyed watching this video, please consider subscribing and turn on notifications. You can follow me on Facebook, Instagram or X for video updates as well as my flower of the day. And you can email me at freyastropicalgarden@gmail.com. Don't forget to check out my website at freyastropicalgarden.co.uk, where you can find a range of information including public gardens that I've visited and information on plants that have been shown on my videos. I've had so much fun making this video, but if you'd like to make a contribution towards running costs, you can do so via PayPal.